Today we're going to be learning Bava Kamma Daf Mem Daled. This is the Daf for Shabbat. We're going to start at the bottom of Mem Gimel Amud Bet, where it says V'chen v'ben u'bevat. Okay, so now we're dealing, before we start, let's just read some of the psukim in the Torah. So if we look in Shemot chapter 21, verses 28 through 31, we're going to see that it's talking about an ox goring a person, killing a person, and what happens to the ox, and what happens to the owner. The first pasuk is 28. Which sounds like a grown man, a grown woman. So an ox scores a person, vamet, and they die. Sakol yisakel shor, the shor gets stoned, the ox gets stoned. You can't benefit from the flesh at all. Okay, it's forbidden to benefit from. Ubala shor naki. The owner, though, is exempt. Why is the owner exempt? Because it's a short time. But how do I know it's a short time? Because the next pasuk says, "Im shor nagachu mitmol shom." If already it was a shor muad, v'hu'ah b'ba'alav v'lo yishmarenu, and they warned the owner, and the owner didn't watch it, v'hemit isho isha, and he killed a person again. We have man or woman. Hashor yisakel v'gam ba'alav yuma. This point we have the shor get stoned, which was the same as before, but also the owners die. Now the owners really don't die. The pasuk continues. The next pasuk, im kofel dushat alav. If we put this ransom payment upon them, that person can redeem their soul by whatever amount is placed upon them. Then it says, this extra pasuk, o ben yibat, o yigach, o bat yigach, if a child is gored, either female or male or female in that order, kamishpat hazeh yasem. According to the same law will be done to it. Now, question is really, what's the same law, and why do we need this pasuk at all? So we bring this Braita, 5 lines from the bottom. O ben yigach o bat yigach lechayev al haktanim kigdolim. This teaches you that you're liable as the owner, whether the ox gored grown people or children. V'halo dinu, to which the Gemara says, but isn't this just logical? Why do you need a kavachomer argument? Why do you need a pasuk to teach you this? You could learn it from a simple logical argument, or from a kavachomer argument, as we're going to see. It's just logical. A person is killed for killing a person, as is a shor, an ox is killed for killing another person. Just like when a person kills another person, it doesn't matter if they're young or old, it doesn't matter what kind of person is killed. Excuse me. So likewise, when an ox scores a person, it shouldn't matter whether they're young or old. This is like a model, right? We have a model for getting killed for killing, and there it doesn't matter young or old. So likewise, the other model of the shor will be the same. And in addition, we have a kavachomer argument. When it comes to a person who kills, only an older person is going to be killed. But if it's a minor, they're not going to be killed if they killed someone. And yet, they're liable for killing small children who wouldn't be killed if they killed, but because we killed them, right? If the minor killed, they wouldn't get the death penalty. But if an older person kills a minor, they will be killed. So, shor ba'adam shasabu k'tanim k'gdolim eno din shechayav al k'tanim k'gdolim. So a shor, a small shor, a 3-day-old shor who gores another person is going to be killed also. So in that case, wouldn't it be obvious then that if a small shor is going to be killed, then obviously the shor is going to be responsible and get stoned for killing a small child as well. So that's your kal v'chomer argument, in addition to your basic, what we call a binyan av, of building a paradigm. So we had 2 types of logical arguments, in which case, why do you need a pasuk to say, O ben yigach o bat yigach? It should seem pretty obvious. To which they say, lo. We're going to knock out these arguments. Ki im amarta adam ba'adam sheken chayav b'arba dvarim. Tomar b'shor she'eno chayav b'arba dvarim. We can knock out both those arguments by saying, we can't learn from shor to adam, because from adam to shor, from humans who kill to oxen who kill. Because humans who injure are liable for 4 things. Really, they're liable for 5, but they're ignoring bullshit right now. But a shul is not chayav in those 4 things. if he injures a person. So now we're going to say, therefore, you can't assume that whatever's true for Adam is true for shor, because it's not. And therefore, it might not be in death either. Well, Talmud Lamal, O Ben Yigach, O Bat Yigach, L'chayev al Aktanim Kedolim. And that's why you needed the pasuk to tell you that. So that was question number one. What did we need this pasuk for at all? Couldn't you learn from logical inferences? To which they explained why they reject the logical inferences. Yeah, the Gemara says, okay, well, Ainli Ella b'muadim b'taminayin. Sorry, this is the bright. Ainli Ella, but all I have here is shor mu'ad, because if you remember the psukim, we started with a shor tam, with a person who killed, and that was isha isha. Then we moved to a shor mu'ad, and the difference was kofer. Then, and that also said isha isha. Then at the end, kind of seeming to refer to a shor mu'ad, we then had about if a shor gores a little child. So we now say, maybe that's just a shor mu'ad. Now notice when I translated, I was struggling because it said kamishpat hazeh, like either these laws, meaning referring to the tam and the mu'ad, or maybe just kamishpat hazeh, the one we just said about the shor mu'ad. So maybe only if the shor is a mu'ad and kills a child are we going to make the shor liable and kill the shor, but maybe not if it killed a child. Okay, and maybe not if it was a shor tam who killed a child. So, b'taminayin, how do we get it with a shor tam? So again, we're going to have the same two type of arguments. Number one, dinhu. Because it says you're liable if you kill a person, or right, man or woman, and a child, ben or bat, male or female. Sorry, I skipped a letter there. Well, then we have this and we have that. And again, one sets up the paradigm for the other. Just like ish v'isha, there's no distinction, tam or mu'ad, and that we saw from the psukim. Again, in terms of the stoning of the animal, so likewise, when we make you liable for killing children, the ox who kills children, we should make no distinction between tam and mu'ad. Ve'od, and furthermore, kal v'chomer should be a simple kal v'chomer argument. Ma ish v'isha sheken hu rak kocham b'nizakim lo chilakta bo ben tam lemu'ad. We're going to say someone, an older person, okay, who's hu rak kocham b'nizakim. This is a bit of a strange argument, and in a minute we're going to flip it on its head, but they're weaker when it comes to damages. Why are they weaker? Because they're liable for damages. We can hold them accountable for damages they cause. And yet, either which way, if you kill them, doesn't matter if the shor was tam or mu'ad, the shor is going to get killed. They have more strength when it comes to nizakim, because if they do nizakim, they don't actually have to pay for them. Eino din, should it not be obvious then, kal v'chomer argument, shelo tachlok behem bein tam lemu'ad. To which they say, Amarta v'chidanim kal michamor lahachmir. Wait a minute. You don't do a kal v'chomer or even a logical argument in this direction. What is that? Im amalta b'ish v'isha sheken chayavim b'mitzvot. Men and women, grown men and women, are actually in a more stringent position, or killing them is going to be viewed more stringently, specifically for the reason you mentioned earlier. You said who they have to pay damages. Well, it's all the more so because they're liable. They're commanded. They're obligated to do mitzvot. So it's actually worse if you kill them. But you might not say the same thing for children who are exempt from mitzvot. This could be an argument against the kal v'chomer, because again, the kal v'chomer set up you're liable for damages versus you're not liable for damages. That would actually make you more valuable if you're liable for damages, because you're actually obligated mitzvot, and therefore killing you would be worse. Alternative, or also for the first argument, you could say you can't say that killing a grown person sets up a paradigm for killing a minor, because killing a minor could be less significant because they're exempt from mitzvot. Now, in the end, obviously, it doesn't make a difference, and that's the point. But the point is, we wouldn't necessarily know. Right now, we're going to say that shor tam can't be learned out by logical argument, that if a shor tam kills a minor, the shor is going to die, get killed. And we're going to learn it from the pasuk also, which is Talmud Lamal, O ben yigach, O bat yigach. Notice there's extra word here. It could just say oben obat yigach, right? If it gored a child, male or female, just like it said isha isha. It didn't say ish yigach isha yigach. Okay, it just said yigach once in those psukim. Here it says if it gores a male child, if it gores a female child. Why did it say gore twice? Nigicha betam, nigicha b'muad. That's to teach you you're going to be liable for two types of nigichot here, whether it was a muad or whether it was a tam. And nigicha l'mita, nigicha l'nizikin. You're going to be liable not just for killing a child, but you're also going to be liable damages for a child. So what we did in this section was we started with a pasuk, oben obad. Why do we even need this pasuk? Isn't it obvious that if you kill a child, the animal will be killed? In the end, we say it wasn't so obvious because both logical arguments we brought, we knocked out. Then we said, how do we know that it applies not only in a shor tam, also in a shor mu'ad? We tried to prove by logic. In the end, we said, no, it must be only learned from the pasuk, because the pasuk says the words yigach twice. From there we learn. Moving on to a new section now. New Mishna. Shol shayam mitkakech bekotel v'nafal ha'adam. We're now going to have all sorts of cases where the shor kills someone without actually intending to kill or even intending to damage. A shor is rubbing up against a wall, and the wall fell on a person and killed the person. Or the shor was actually trying to gore another animal and missed the animal and hit a person, or the person got in the way and killed the person. Was intending to kill a Gentile and killed a Jew, which again, you're not liable damages for killing of a Gentile. It's not the same laws. It was a baby who wasn't viable, and that it wanted to kill a baby who wasn't viable and turned out killing a viable baby, right? What's a nefel? We've had different interpretations in the past, either an 8-month baby, a baby born after 8 months, what the rabbi's belief was not going to survive. You're either a 7-month or a 9-month, but not a baby born in month 8. Or perhaps just the first 30 days when we're not even sure if you're going to be viable because they didn't really, right? Many kids didn't make it past the first 30 days. And in the end, the shor actually killed a baby who was a ben kayama. Well, all those cases, the shor is going to be exempt. Okay, we're going to see what exactly does it mean exempt. Right now, it just says exempt. Now, there's two issues if you remember. There's number one, the shor getting killed. Number two, there's the kofer, the ransom payment. So Amar Shmuel, patur mimita v'chayav b'kofer. Shmuel distinguishes between them. He says you're exempt from death. Okay, the shor doesn't get stoned here, but you're chayav b'kofer. So before we even move on, let's understand why are you exempt from death. So Rashi says, patur mimita dehalo nitkaven, because you didn't intend. So what? Well, I'm reading on the Kamma, and it says later that kimitat ba'alim. It's just like Rashi says, Anam bed of our death. It's just like the death of the owner. If the owner, not the death, a killing of the owner. If the owner kills, im harad ken mitata shor shahad. I said this, I didn't read this well. Kimitat ba'alim im harad ken mitata shor shahad. We're going to treat a shor who kills just like a person who kills. Person who kills and intends to kill one person and intends to kill an animal and kills a person is not going to be liable. Okay, and therefore here also they're not going to be liable. Okay, intends to kill a Gentile, kills a Jew, also not liable. Intends to kill an Ethel, kills a Ben Kayama. All these cases not liable. So, likewise, the animals can be patur from mitam. This is agreed upon by everybody. However, there's going to be a machlokah Rav and Shmuel about the kofer. Shmuel says you're still chayav kofer. You still have to pay a ransom payment because in the end they killed a person. Okay, and they killed a Ben Kayama and they killed a Jew and they killed. Okay, so he says the Darshinan Rashi says kofer im kofer lahavi shelo b'chavana. The pasuk just could have said kofer yushat alav, but it says im kofer yushat alav v'natan pidyon of show. If you put the ransom payment on him, then he will redeem himself. Now you could say that's the simple reading, but the drasha is, why does it say im? To say if there is going to be a case where you won't be liable, the animal won't get stoned, and you will be liable to pay for the kofer, obligated to pay. Rav Amal patul mizeh mizeh. Rav says no, you're exempt from the kofer as well. And Rav says this. Rashi says, as Rav says elsewhere, hashor yisakel v'gomer. Because in the pasuk it says hashor yisakel v'gam ba'alav yumat, and the owner will die, but the owner could pay the ransom payment instead. Kozman shashor b'skila ba'alim kavshalmin kofer. Says those two things go hand in hand. The shor gets stoned, the owner pays the kofer. If not, not. So, to which the Gemara says, va'amai. So now we have a big question. Why is the animal going to be chayav kofer according to Rabbi Shmuel? V'ha tamu, but the animal is tam. Okay, so how could you say that you have to pay kofer when the animal is tam? We learned that kofer, there was a bit of a machloket, but the general opinion is you don't pay kofer for a short time. There's this other case that Rav says there, okay, and the case Rashi brings in Daf Ben Chet about a shor that nafal al ha'adam bibor. You can look at Rashi bishlam hatam kabeshul shenafal al ha'adam bibor. A shor falls into a bore and falls on a person. So there they say it must be a case where, okay, then they say, how could it be a muad? It said, well, it must be that there was green stuff at the edge of the bore, and 3 times the animal went, ate the green stuff, fell into the bore, and became a shor mu'ab for doing this. Because theoretically, you could say, how could you be a shor mu'ab for intent? Well, there must have been intent for something. It just wasn't intent to kill necessarily, but it was a thing that happened 3 times already and killed. So we're going to call it a shor mu'ab. So now, or injured, could be just injured. So just like Rav says it there, we could say the same thing here. You could say that the shor rubbed up against a wall already 3 times, knocked down the wall, and injured someone. And then there could be a shor mu'ad even without intent to damage. To which the Gemara says, so if you're going to say that, there we understand. There was green stuff and it went to eat it and it fell in. But how could you say it here? Why would the animal be knocking the wall if not to kill? And why would the animal keep going to the wall, rubbing up against it, and kill someone when we say they weren't doing it to kill? If there's a pattern here, there must be a reason that's motivating. What else would motivate the animal to rub up against the wall? But we already know, we've seen this before. Now, the animal likes rubbing against the wall. We've seen animals rub against the floor, they rub against the wall, they rub against stones. They rub against things that's pleasurable for them. And therefore, the animal has done this 3 times. They're very strong. They knock over the wall, kill somebody with it, and voila, shor mu'ad, which is what we're looking for. So then they say, Minayadina. How do we know to distinguish? We're trying to find a case where the animal didn't have intent to kill. If the animal had intent to kill, it would be obviously stoned. And we want to say the animal isn't stoned, but there is a kofer because there wasn't intent to kill, but the shor was already a shor mu'ad, so we're going to have a kofer payment. Again, only small things, because Rav says as soon as there's no death, there's no kofer. But how will we know, according to Shmuel, that the animal was just trying to rub up, wasn't intending to kill, but was mu'ad for this? Because we've seen it happen a few times. Because what happened? After the wall was already knocked down, the animal continued to rub their body against the stones. And then it seems clear that the whole purpose was to pleasurable activity and not trying to knock down the wall. Turning now to Amubet, we still have another problem with this case. But wait, if the animal's rubbing up against the wall, in the process, not because of pleasure, knocks down the wall, this has already happened 3 times, knocks down the wall, and the rocks, the pebbles fall onto someone and kill them, well, that's shor. And if it's shor, right, that means it's an indirect action of the animal. The animal rubbed against the wall broke, the rocks flew, killed somebody. Shor, you wouldn't be liable kofer for shor. It's only chatzi nezek, and you don't have kofer on shor for sure. So Amra Mary Bereder of Kahana de Ka'azal Mine Mine. It would have to be that the animal was pushing up against the stones the whole time and crushed a person in the process. So they were pushing up against the rocks for pleasurable activities, but in the process directly killed a person. And then you don't have to say it's shor. And that took us a while to understand what case Shmuel is talking about, but we now have the case where it's both a mu'ad and there wasn't intent to kill. Now, Tanya Kavatei to Shmuel, to Rav. We're now going to have a proof for Shmuel. Remember, Rav says you're exempt from kofer and you're exempt from stoning. In other words, because it goes hand in hand, once you're exempt from stoning, you're exempt from kofer, the ransom payment. Comes Shmuel and he says, no, you're still liable the ransom payment because in the end he killed someone. Who cares if there was no intent? So now there's a bride to prove Shmuel and leave a question against Rav. Yesh chayab b'mital b'kofer. There's going to be 4 different scenarios here. You could have a case where you're liable death, meaning the animal gets killed, and the owner has to pay ransom. That's case number 1. Yesh chayav bekofer upator mimita. There's a case where you pay kofer, but you don't the animal doesn't get killed. That's our case, and that's a proof only according to Shmuel, obviously. We're going to see in a minute what the cases are, and it's going to be obvious it's our case. It could be a case where the animal gets stoned, but the owner doesn't have to pay the ransom. And there's cases where you're exempt from both. What are these cases? Well, if it was a shor mu'ad and did it with intent, then the animal gets stoned and the owner pays the ransom. So just good review. That's our case. Shor mu'ad, who now kills without intent, pays the kofar payment, but is exempt from death. Tam b'chavana, it's a shor tam who intentionally kills, but chayav b'mitau patur mikofar. There's no kofar because it's a shor tam. But yes, the animal gets killed because a shor tam gets killed if they killed someone. And tam shelo b'chavana patur mizeh. Well, we already said if you do it without intent, the shor doesn't get killed, and obviously you wouldn't pay the ransom payment because it's only a shor tam. And the Breituk ends with the following statement. Not connected, but a little connected. Damages are caused by the animal without intent, meaning the animal didn't mean to. Animal was trying to do something else and damaged in the process. Rabbi Yehuda mechayev, Rabbi Shimon potel. Rabbi Yehuda obligates. Rabbi Shimon says you're not obligated. You might remember there's a famous machlok between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon who hold by the same thing they hold here in Masechet Shabbat, and it comes up in other things as well about davar she'eino mitkaven. If you're doing a malacha but you didn't intend to do that malacha, you intended to do something else. Like for example, you intended to wash your hands and you poured the water on the grass, and in the process it watered the grass, but that wasn't your intent. Okay, that might be a little different because of subsigresha, but without getting into that, it's a davar she'eino mitkaven. I didn't intend to do a malacha. So according to Rabbi Shimon, you're exempt. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you're liable. So that's really the same thing that we're talking about here, which is, right, even though you didn't intend, you're still liable according to Rabbi Yehuda. But according to Rabbi Shimon, you are not. You are exempt. So that's about damages. Now, my time to Rabbi Yehuda. Now we're going off topic because we're going up into this thing that we just said. What's the reason for Rabbi Yehuda who says you're liable? Well, he learns it from kofel. Yalaf mi kafro. Ma kafro shelo b'chavana chayav. We just learned, again, this is Shmuel's reading and the brightest reading. Just like kofel, without intent, you're liable. You're also going to be liable for damages the animal caused without intent. But Rabbi Shimon Yalef mikatle deshor. Rabbi Shimon learns it from the killing of the ox. If the animal killed without intent, the animal is exempt from getting stoned. Likewise, damages without intent will be exempted. So now we're going to see Rabbi Yehuda, why wouldn't you learn it from the killing? Because the shor doesn't get killed when he doesn't do it intentionally. Why would you obligate the shor for damages if it wasn't intentional? Rabbi Yehuda could answer that we're going to learn it from kofar, because kofar is a payment and nizakin is a payment, as opposed to if the shor kills and the shor gets stoned, that's a punishment to the shor's body, but it's not a payment. So you would say, let's learn payment from payment. So since there is a kofar payment without intent, then there will be nizakin payments, damage payments without intent. The Rabbi Shimon, so let's ask him that. Why didn't he learn it from kofar? To which they answer, the kofar is actually just something that's on the owner. The owner is supposed to die, and they can pay this ransom payment out. And we even had this whole discussion on what is it based on the value of the person themselves. It's very different than the obligations on the shore. The obligations on the shore gets stoned, and the owner has to pay the compensate for what the shore did. It's not exactly on the shore because the shore doesn't pay, but it's more closely connected to what the shore did rather than this ransom payment, which is kind of something else. So it makes more sense to learn it from there, not to learn it from the ransom payment, and that's why Rabbi Shimon learns it from there. So we have this debate about what happens with nizakin that are done without intent. Do we learn it from kofar, or do we learn it from the stoning of the animal? We're now going to infer something from the Mishna. The Mishna gave a case where the animal tried to kill an animal, but in the end killed a person. And we said the animal doesn't get stoned. Well, it sounds like, though, if the animal tried to kill one person and killed a different person by accident, well, then they're liable. Now, why is this important? Because the same thing comes up when it comes to a person. Remember, we learn the shor from the person. The shor is going to get stoned in the case where a person would get killed. So now if a person tries to kill one person and ends up killing somebody else, there's actually a machloket about it. And that's what we're going to say. Matnitin deloke Rabbi Shimon. Our Mishna is not like Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon omer, afilu nitkabel la'arog etzeh, ba'arag etzeh patur. Even if you intended to kill one person, you killed someone else, you're liable because you tried to kill someone. And this is true both for a shor and for a person. My tama de Rabbi Shimon. So first of all, he talks about it by the ox. Why is that? He thinks by the ox, you're going to be liable if you intended to kill a person. It doesn't matter if you intend to kill this person or a different person. Da'amal kaz, the pasuk says, hashor yisakel v'gam ba'alav yumat. Ki mitat ba'alim kach mitat hashor. And this is what we quoted previously. The shor is going to die in this parallel case when a person would die if they killed a person in the same way. And comes Rabbi Shimon and says, ma ba'alim ad mechavin le, af shor nami ad mechavin le. Okay, so the ba'alim need to have kavanah. And therefore, if they intended to kill a person, they'd be liable. So likewise, the shor will be not liable. A person has to have intent. According to Rabbi Shimon, the person is only going to be killed. I hope I didn't say this the reverse before, right? Again, the inference from the Mishna is if you kill one person, you tried to kill one person, you killed someone else, you actually would be liable. Rabbi Shimon says you are not liable. By the way, this fits with Rabbi Shimon. Davar she'eino mitkaven. He takes it very seriously. Says, this isn't what you intended. You didn't intend to kill that person. You intended to kill someone else. You won't get the death penalty. Now, it's not to say you did something okay. You didn't do something okay, but you won't get the death penalty. So now, right now, we're going to say, well, since it's true for Adam that way, for a person, it will be true for a shor also, that just like a person would be exempt, the shor will also not get stoned. What are we missing, though? How do we know that a person won't get killed if they intended to kill one person and killed somebody else? And meaning they'll only get the death penalty if they actually intended to kill the person that they killed. Well, because the pasuk says, this is in the psukim about Ir Miklat, when you go to a refuge city and when you don't go to a refuge city because it was intentional murder. Intentional murder is described in the following way, in one of the psukim anyway. Va'aravlo, you ambushed the person, and Kamma, and then you stood up and went against them and killed them, which is translated as the drasha is ad sheyitkaven lo. Well, because it says va'aravlo meant you ambushed him, it meant you had intent to kill that person. Only if you actually killed that person will you be liable the death penalty. The Rabbanan, now the rabbis who disagree and think both for a person and for a shor you're going to be liable, which is what we learned from our Mishna, and we now learned here, what do they do with that ambush pasuk? That comes to exclude a different case, a case where somebody throws a stone into a group of people. Now, what we're going to assume is the group of people, if you intend to kill one and you kill the other, you will be liable. So why would that exempt you? So the assumption is here, we're talking about there was a group of people, some Gentiles and some Jews. Now we have to figure out how many, and this is going to remind us of the famous sugya that we've seen a whole bunch of times already about the 10 stores, 9 kosher, 1 non-kosher, 9 non-kosher, 1 kosher. How do we view it? So now they're going to say the following. What's the case where you throw a stone into a group of people and we're actually going to exempt you, even though normally you intend to kill one person, you kill someone else, you'll be liable. In this case, you won't be if you killed one of the people and it wasn't the one you intended. So if there's 9 Gentiles and only 1 Jew, obviously you're not chayav because typically deruba knanim ninu. Well, you just say we follow the majority, and the majority are Gentiles. Inami palgu palga. Let's say it's 5 and 5. Okay, 50-50 chance you're killing a Jew. Sapek nefasho lahakel. We're not going to kill you based on that because it's a 50-50 chance that you were intending for a Jew, and therefore we are lenient. We're not going to rule you for death if we're uncertain. Well, lotzricha. So what's the route? What do you need a pasuk for? V'kam lo ve'arav lo v'kamala. That you ambush the person. What is it coming to teach you? Coming to teach you de'ika tisha Yisraelim v'achad Knani. There were 9 Jews and only 1 Gentile. Even though the majority are Jews, and normally we go by majority, in this case, since there is 1 Gentile there, this is a case where the people are stationary. They're not moving. It's not like they came from somewhere. They're all standing here. I throw something from the outside into the group, this stone, to kill one of them. Now, kol kavua, anytime we have something kavua, even if 9 are Jews and 1 is a Gentile, we say, the chances are that I will hit a Jew is actually 50-50 only. Okay, it's not 9 out of 10 chances, because each person is viewed as a separate thing. Now, this person is, if I'm intending for this one, the person is either a Jew or it's not a Jew. We know that there's 1 Gentile there, but everyone is viewed as perhaps Jew, perhaps Gentile. Okay, which means it's 50-50. Once we get it down to 50-50, safek nefashot lahakel. Okay, we're not going to spend our time today on this topic, even though we have talked about other times, and maybe when we see a sugya where it's the real center piece of the sugya, we'll talk about it more, about the reasons for, right? We have called a parish, miruba parish. If something comes from somewhere, we say, oh, well, chances are it came from the majority of whatever it was. But if everyone is standing there and we're coming from the outside and kind of looking in, then we view each of them as each standing person is either 50-50, right? Like the stores are in the place and I go into a store. The question is, the store I went into is 50-50, kosher, non-kosher. Doesn't matter what the ratio of kosher to non-kosher is. Okay. And because it's 50-50, safek nefashot lahakel, and therefore we're lenient. Okay. Moving, so let's review, because let's just review right now. We did the Ben Ubat, we did the review of that sugya. Now we're going to do the review of this Mishnah, which was any time the shor doesn't intend to kill and kills anyway, right? For someone who you would be liable for, the shor is not going to get stoned. Machloket Rav and Shmuel, though, whether the owner has to pay the kofar, the ransom payment. And we saw a brayta that supports Shmuel in that way. It took us a little while to figure out what exactly is the case of Shmuel. How could it be both shor muad and also not intentional? But we figured that out. And then we brought a brayta to support. With that brayta, we had this whole thing about Eno mitkavim by nizakin, the machloket, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. We gave the reasons for their machloket, and then we talked about this inference from the Mishnah that because it said niskaven larog adam and harag behema, but it didn't say niskaven larog adam v'harag adam, it must be the animal is actually liable in that case and would die. And that is not like Rabbi Shimon, because Rabbi Shimon doesn't think that's the case, not by people and not by animals. And then we said, what's the base of their machloket? And it said how to understand this pasuk, va'arav lo v'kam alav. Okay, now moving to our next Mishnah. Shor ha'isha v'shor ha'yitomim, shor ha'bitropus, shor ha'midbar, shor ha'ektesh, shor ha'gel shemet ve'en lo yoshim, re'elu chayavim mita. All these types of shors who damage are also meant to be stoned. Okay, these are, you might have thought they were exceptions. A shor of a woman, why you would have thought it was an exception, good question. Some people say because women don't usually own things. Perhaps women aren't expected to be able to control the shvarim. Women were viewed as weaker, less strong beings. But in any case, it doesn't really matter what they thought. The point is they're in here to say she's liable just like anybody else, and her shor will get killed if it kills someone. Yitomim, orphans who don't have anyone in charge of their stuff, still the shor. Again, this doesn't mean the owner's responsible. It means the shor gets killed because the shor is a dangerous shor if it kills somebody. Shor who belongs to the apitropos, in other words, they have guardians who are in charge of their shvarim, also that shor will be killed. And the next 3 are things, shvarim that don't have, shors, oxen that don't have owners. So, shor hamidbar, a shor that lives in the desert. Shor ha'ekdesh, a shor that's hekdesh, that's sanctified to the temple. Shor hagel shemet ve'en lo yorshim. If you remember a convert who dies and doesn't have children after they converted, their children, if they had children before, they don't have any relatives. So, or any relatives they have aren't really considered their relatives because they're not Jewish, or they also converted, in which case they're no longer relatives because they're a convert who converts is like a katan shenolad, like a child who's born, and therefore they're ptulmi min hamita. And then they don't have heirs, which means that all their stuff becomes ownerless when they die. All these cases, harelo chayavim mita, skipped the line for a minute. Even though they don't have owners, the shor actually gets killed. But Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. Rabbi Yehuda omer shor hamidbar, shor ha'ekdesh, shor hagel shemet. The 3 last ones are ptulim min hamita, don't get killed. Lefi she'ein lehem ba'alim, because they don't have any owners. So if they don't have owners, they don't get killed. Again, if we view the kofar as going hand in hand, then you would say, oh, well, there's no kofar because there's no owners, so we're not going to kill the shor either. Tana Rabbanan. Now we're going to bring braytot. They're going to show the source for Rabbi Yehuda and the Tana Kamma. First one shows Tana Kamma. Shor shol shiva. It says shor 7 times in the psukim there, the word shor. What do you learn from there? The first one is there because you need it. The other 6 can be darshan. So, lahavi, shor ha'isha, shor ha'yatomim, shor ha'pitrabu, shor ha'midbal, shor ha'ikdesh, shor ha'gel shemei ve'en lo yoshim. The 6 cases in our Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, shor ha'midbal, shor ha'ikdesh, shor ha'gel shemei ve'en lo yoshim, p'turim min ha'mital lefi she'en lo ba'alim. That didn't add anything to what we knew. That's just quoting Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Amar Rav Huna. Rav Huna adds that poter haya Rabbi Yehuda, and this we saw before, in a different sugya much earlier in the Masechet, afilu nagachu levasov hikdish. Even if the shor gored and then you sanctified it, or nagachu levasov hifkir, or you or gored and then you made it ownerless, even then it's going to be exempt. Mimai, where do we learn this? And not only does he think a shor that's ownerless is exempt, but even a shor that at the time of the action wasn't ownerless. Where do we get it from? Mitikatane tarte. Because our Mishnah gives 2 cases that really they're one and the same. Shor hamidbal is shor from the desert, which is a wild shor, no one owns it. And shor hagel shemei ve'en lo yoshim is also a shor that's ownerless. Shor hagel shemei ma'iniu dekemen de'en lo yoshim havale shor hefker. That's just a shor that's ownerless. Hainu shor hamidbar, hainu shor hagel shemei ve'en lo yoshim. It's all this one and the same. And therefore, elalav hakamashman, it must be telling you, because what's a shor hagel? It had an owner. The convert was the owner, and then it no longer had an owner. So, hakamashman dafilu nagachu levasof hikdish, nagachu levasof hifkir shmamina. From there you learn that if it changed owners and it became ownerless, or it became sanctified, the shor wouldn't actually get killed. So now, Tanya Nami Hachi. Now we're going to bring a braita that's going to prove this and show where he gets it from. Yetera kenamar Rabbi Yehuda, afilu nagachu levasof hikdish, nagachu levasof hifkir patul. Okay, that's the exact same thing we just saw. How do we know this? And this we actually saw when we saw the sugya in the beginning of the Masechet, Shene'emal, V'hu'a beba'ala v'hemi, because it says, and they warned the owner, meaning in court, and the shor killed. We're going to learn from here, Ajite mita v'hamada b'din shavin ke'echad. You need to have the shor in the same status of owner, meaning has to have an owner. Some people think it has to have the same owner. Some people says just has to have an owner. It could be you sold it, still be liable. There's a debate about that. But those 2 things have to be with the same owner or with an owner. Ugamar din lo b'inan, they say, and this we saw also when we first saw this sugya. And what you don't need gemar din, it doesn't need it, but when the gemar din, when the judgment, the ruling comes out, also it needs to have an owner. How do we know? Because the end of that pasuk, the continuation says, "V'ha shor yisakel," is gemar dinu. It says the shor will get stoned, and that's also in the same continuum of these things. All have to be, the presumption is they have to all happen when the shor is still owned by someone. So ela ema, you should change the wording of the braita to read ajte mitav amada b'din u'gemardin shavin ke'echad. It would have to be all these are the same. So to summarize this Mishnah, we had all these cases where Tana Kamma thinks, even though maybe you would have thought the shor doesn't get killed, it gets killed in all these cases, even if there's an issue with the owner or there is no owner, to which Rabbi Yehuda said, well, if it really is ownerless, actually the shor doesn't get killed. And not only that, but if it did have an owner, but was ownerless at the time of either when they went to court or even when the ruling came, if then by then it already was ownerless or belonged to the temple, you would actually be exempt as well. And then we saw how we learned it from the psukim, both of them. Now we finish with the last Mishnah here. Shor shehu yotzei lisakel v'ikdishu ba'alav. Once it's supposed to go out to be stoned, remember it says you can't eat the meat. That means it's forbidden to benefit from it all. And the owner decided to sanctify it to the temple. Eino mukdash, he did nothing because he doesn't own it. You could only sanctify something you own. Shchato b'saro asur. If he slaughters it, well, the meat is forbidden. But let's say the shor was not yet fully convicted in court. They were brought to court, but not convicted, and you sanctify it, the owner, mukdash. The owner can still sanctify it. Until they rule the shor is supposed to get stoned, the shor is not considered a shor who is forbidden to benefit from, because there hasn't been a ruling yet. And therefore, if you slaughtered it, you actually could eat the meat. Misaro, totally different halacha, because now we're not talking about a shor that is supposed to be killed. Now we're just talking about a shor in general. I have an ox, and I gave it to you to watch, or to borrow, or to rent, or whatever it might be. You're a shomer, one of these people that has to watch it. Nichnisu tachat habalim. This also we referenced previously. You come in my place, basically, and you're now responsible for damages. So therefore, If it was a shor muad, you have to pay full damages. If it was a short time, you'd have to pay half damages. And you're responsible right now because you're watching my shor. You basically take on a responsibility for watching it from damages as well, not just preventing it from getting damaged, but also you're responsible to prevent it from damaging. That's it for today. Wishing everybody a Shabbat Shalom, and we'll meet up on Sunday.